Boom.
All right. Well, yeah. Welcome to another in the Tigers minor league report interview series. I am on the road, but I am parked. Alongside me is Rogelio, and we're joined by Zach Surdenik, the new voice of the Lakeland Flying Tigers. So, Zach, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, before we get going into our discussion, we always like to get a little background on our guests. So, the first thing we want to know is what's your earliest baseball memory?
Yeah, so growing up in Michigan, I was always kind of around the Tigers organization, and watching. I remember going to games at Comerica as a kid, but I think some of the earliest memories, and this may show my youth, I guess, but some of my earliest memories that I remember distinctly watching. Like game 163 with the Tigers and the Twins, and watching some of those series, and then getting into a little bit before. I was a big Curtis Granderson fan growing up, and so watching Curtis Granderson and those Tigers teams, and then kind of getting into the playoff runs in when I was in middle school with the 2012 and the 2013 teams. And so that's really where I kind of think starting it. But I grew up in a baseball family. My dad played baseball and coached baseball. I played baseball coming up through high school. So did my younger brother. And so just always being around the game is really something that I've always enjoyed doing.
Yeah, I mean, the other question we like to ask is your favorite player growing up, but I'm taking it was Curtis Granderson.
Yeah, I loved Curtis Granderson. I had a few other guys that I enjoyed watching, but Curtis Granderson was my favorite player as a kid for sure.
I think his 2000 season or 2007 season rather is
Hmm.
probably one of the greatest offensive seasons we'll ever see as Tigers
Yeah.
fans. I don't know if people like hold it in such high regard, but he hit 300 with what
Hmm.
30 doubles, 20 triples, 20 home runs, 20 steals. Just a remarkable season.
Yeah, just numbers you don't really see. And part of that, in terms of especially with the triples numbers, has to do with Comerica a little bit, but
Yeah,
still, just numbers you don't see very often at all.
Yeah, and as far as like you think about Granderson too, when he started kind of going more for power too, it's almost
Hmm.
like a what if kind of career if he continued to hit for more in the gap versus for power.
Yeah, you can always kind of look at that and ask that question for sure. But, at the end of the day, I think that he did a lot in Detroit. He's always been somebody that has been held in high regard off the field as well. And just being able to make the impact on and off the diamond was really, really big.
So, what started the play-by-play itch for you? I mean, you grew
Yeah.
up playing the game, and of course, being with your father being a coach, what have you. But growing up in Lansing, how did the first opportunity come about?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So when I was so my mom always messes with me about this because when I was a kid, I would play sports video games like everybody would, and I would kind of call the action over the video game, and they would mess with me. They're like, nobody needs to hear it, shut the door, whatever. Um, and it has kind of obviously it's funny that it's flipped because my mom loves listening to me do games now, but no, so I never really thought of it as something I could do as a career, though. I didn't really look at it. And then my dad took a job. My dad is a pastor now, and so he took a job, and we moved a little bit outside Lansing after my sophomore year of high school. And that kind of flipped things around in my mind, and I was just kind of like, all right. And then I really started looking at where I was going to go to school and what I was going to do. And I was looking through different local colleges and kind of finding things of like different programs, and I saw a sports broadcast program, and I was like, oh, this is something I could actually do. So then I started to look into it more and more, and I looked into the program at Michigan State, and really just kind of flipped things. I got started doing some stuff in journalism. I kind of did a few different things. I did some PA in high school to get NHS hours for basketball.
Nice.
And then when I got out of school, so I graduated high school during COVID. And so COVID hit, and I kind of made the decision that I gave myself about a week or so to kind of be upset about everything. And then I just kind of was like, all right, I've got to keep moving. Um, Ernie Johnson did a series on Twitter at the time with industry professionals, and it was just Q&As, and it was every day for like 40 days or whatever. And I didn't have anything else I was doing. I was out of high school and didn't have a job or anything at the time. COVID, everything was shut down. So I went to every single one of those, and I was able to learn from a lot of different people from those and take notes. And I ended up getting an internship in the Northwoods League that summer. That at the time I did not realize how lucky I was to get that and how competitive those are. But it was COVID, and so people were dropping out. And so I called them. I just kind of cold called the office, and I was like, "Hey, are you guys looking for interns?" And they were like, "Yeah, we had some people drop out. Can you start tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Sure," because I'm in the area. And so I was originally going to work in Battle Creek with the Bombers at the time, and I was going to do PA for them. And then the city of Battle Creek said you can't play here, and so we had to move to Kalamazoo with the
Mm.
Growlers because that's all like one organization. And well, they already had a PA guy. And so I come in and I'm doing all sorts of different things. I'm doing running cameras, I'm doing social media. I'm just kind of there and around and doing whatever. But at the time, I knew I wanted to go into broadcasting. And so I was kind of pushing for things. And the two broadcasters that were there had to leave early because their school started back up before Michigan State and they weren't local necessarily. And so I ended up doing the last 15 games of the season for them kind of out of necessity. They hadn't really heard me do any games because I hadn't done any live on air games yet. I had recorded some stuff, but I hadn't done anything on air. And so they were just kind of like, here you go, try it out. And that was kind of my first start in things. And then that kind of allowed me to get into Michigan State with a little bit of tape, which then helped me to get on the air earlier at Michigan State. I also kind of benefited from being from Lansing and COVID happening, and so there weren't as many people on campus. Um, and that just kind of jump started things. And then 4 or 5 years later, and a few different summer ball leagues and a bunch of different sports at Michigan State. Now I'm here in Lakeland.
Yeah, I mean that's a fascinating story. Kind of taking that, the negative of COVID and all that stuff, and making it work for you, which is fun. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, if you're calling play by play while you're playing video games, did you do that with your friends while you're playing them, like as a troll? Because that would have been a
I
lot of
don't
fun. Like,
even
oh,
I
what a
don't even
pathetic effort.
remember, to be honest with you.
Sure.
I more just remember like the thing that I mentioned about like getting told like, oh, nobody needs to hear the video game, whatever. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm sure I might have, but I don't remember specifically. But that would have been electric.
So yeah, you mentioned doing the Northwoods League, which is generally considered, I
Yeah.
think, the second best wood bat prep league. But
Yeah.
then you also got to do some Cape Cod stuff, right, with Falmouth.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what was that experience like?
Oh, it was awesome. So I one of my goals coming in to Michigan State was to get into the Cape League because everybody knows how prestigious the Cape League is and all of the people that have come through there. And so I was really pushing for it. I interviewed after my sophomore year for a position actually with Falmouth and with a couple other teams, and I didn't get any of those. I ended up going back to I spent 2 summers in the Coastal Plain League with
Mm.
the Tri City Chili Peppers.
Oh.
It was their first 2 seasons actually as an organization, so that was cool to kind of build up with them. But anyways, back to the Cape League. So then I interviewed with Falmouth again my junior year, and I had a really good interview with them the year before, and like I really enjoyed what they had to say and the organization and how everything looked. And so I interviewed with them, and then I got an offer from them, and I was like, all right, I'm taking this. I turned down the rest of the interviews or whatever that I had, and I was like, I want to go here. And this was the team I wanted to go to, and it was a really, really enjoyable experience. I called games with Matt Venezia, who's now a news anchor in Baton Rouge and killing it down there,
Nice.
or a sports anchor. He does a really, really good job. And he was out at Arizona State. And then I was with Destiny Sanchez as well, who was at Penn State and is now doing news as well and is super, super talented. And so it was just a really talented group of us out there, and it was really, really fun. The team was loaded. You had Travis Bazana, Charlie Condon, Jay Slavolette, Gavin Turley. I mean, that team was crazy good. And I mean, it's a summer league, so guys are coming in and out. Some of those guys were playing with Team USA, but just the amount of talent on that team alone was ridiculous, and then the league in general was really crazy. It was a different experience. It's kind of like a pure baseball experience. Like for anybody that hasn't been out to the Cape, the games are you can donate to the team if you want, but you don't have to pay for tickets. It's not the organizations aren't for profit organizations. Everybody's a volunteer. And that's just a really cool atmosphere. Because and it was cool for me to see that shift because I had spent the 2 summers before working in a league for in a for profit organization and a business, and
Mhm.
that's how this world works. But it was kind of cool to spend a summer in that paradise where it's just kind of like, for this summer it doesn't really matter. It's just about the baseball. It's about the fun. And it was just and the weather's perfect out there all the time. I got engaged out there that summer. It was great. And so it was just an amazing summer experience, and I love it out there.
The coolest thing that I was reading about your bio, Zach, that I
Yeah.
found awesome is that the career center internship, and talk about the I think sometimes we the road to get somewhere is
Hmm.
a very it can be very just the amount of like just twists and turns and everything. But talk about how the importance of that helping you get out there, that set your mind at ease, and that kind of helped you really focus on making yourself as talent, or just getting yourself those reps and not having to worry about a place to stay and just those kind of things, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, the scholarship was huge. And so what that allowed me to do was it allowed me to, one, have a place to stay out there because the Cape is not cheap.
yeah, I was gonna say,
And it is a very, and that was something I was worried about when I was getting it. I did have the mindset of I'm going to figure it out. Like I want to get the job and then I'll figure it out. But at the same time, it was a situation where without that, it would have been really tight for me. And a lot of people that go to the Cape League and work in the Cape League also will work another job during the days. But because of that scholarship, I didn't have to do that. And so I was able to really, really focus on my prep and on getting stuff done and on making game notes and other things like that. That especially like the game notes was something I really wanted to do because I knew that my goal was to kind of work my way up through minor leagues and get into the MILB, and the media relations and game notes is such a big part of that. And that was something that we weren't necessarily required to do on the Cape, but it was something that I was really, really passionate about doing and making sure that I did. And there weren't a ton of us that did it at the start of the summer. I did it, and then Tyler Danberg, who was at Ohio State and is now in the Rangers organization, it did as well. And it was just something that it was kind of cool to see spread throughout the league as well as the year went on. More and more teams and broadcasters kind of started doing that, and it helps everybody out. And so it was something that I wouldn't have had the time to do had I been working a day job and then going and do the games. And so I was able to focus on prep. I was at the ballpark early. um, it was kind of funny. They would mess with me the 1 or 2 times that they would beat me to the ballpark, because we lived down the street, and so it was nice and quick to get there. And I always preferred to work at the ballpark. I just enjoy being around everything. And so when I'm working on my scorebook or working on prep stats, like I would do it from in the press box, and that was something that like is always just been really fun to me. But yeah, the scholarship was absolutely massive, and I'm really, really grateful for that.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned, I think from the outside, people who don't like look to pursue broadcasting as a career
Right.
might just think that it's kind of glamorous, right? Like you're doing play by play. It's great. And then what we've learned through talking to all these announcers in the minors, and it sounds like a little bit of what you were doing in Kalamazoo, is there's a lot of stuff you got to do that
Oh yeah.
has nothing to do with baseball, even like
Yeah, the
helping
the
clean up.
broadcast, the game is the easiest part,
Yeah.
always. You're doing all sorts of things. You're running around and helping out with everything, especially in minor league baseball, because there's so much going on. When you get to the big leagues, it's a little more just you can focus on broadcast because there's other people that are doing those other things. But when you're in minor league baseball or when you're in summer league ball in collegiate summer league, your staff is pretty small. And so you don't have a ton of people that are doing these things. You're pretty much, if there's a tarp pull, you're pulling the tarp. If there's all of these other, like, yes, you're a broadcaster, but you're also wearing a lot of different hats and you're doing other things. And then the prep is a ton too. And I think that that's something that people don't necessarily think about as much. Just how much, I mean, they always say in broadcasting, and I do think this is pretty accurate, that you only use for a good game, you're probably only going to use about 8 to 10% of the prep that you have. And for a bad game, you may use 20%.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that's it. Like you're not
wow,
going to use, and especially in baseball, because it's such a long season, like the amount of stuff going on and the things that it all comes down to relationship building because you build those relationships and you tell stories. Everybody's got numbers. But if I can tell a story and if I can give the listener something that they don't know, I think that's always a good thing, especially if I can do that along with the game. Because
Mhm.
obviously, you don't want to have that take away from the game that's happening. And so it's always about a balance. And that's something that I think is really, really important. But yeah, you're doing a lot of different things and wearing a lot of different hats and having a lot of fun. It's a grind. Summer baseball is a grind, especially when you get into minor league baseball, major league baseball, 100+ game seasons. It's go, go, go. But it's also really rewarding and really enjoyable.
Yeah, and one aspect in minor league baseball that I really enjoy is sometimes, especially on the, it seems like on the lower levels too, is the interaction with the fans. Meaning that
Yes.
it just seems like the fans are more involved. You get to see the regular fans, and especially in Lakeland. There's so many of the home fans that just talking to Joe a little bit and just going down the Lakeland. It just seems like those staples of those people too. If you're coming across them, it seems like they always have some sort of story with the player because they also have involvement with the players because the players are involved in the community, and that does definitely helps with the storytelling.
Yeah, that's something I'm really excited to get to do is to get out into this community and get to meet the Flying Tigers fans and become a part of this organization even further. And that was something that I really enjoyed last year working with Dan and Jason. A lot of the time, if they were like filming a video down in the concourse or something like that, or with Andy Dirks and Daniela Bruce, like I was a lot of the times I was the one recording those videos. And I got to see just how happy it made people to interact with them. And that's something that I remember coming home from that game. It was in September, and Dan went down. It was two different things on the same day. Dan went down to meet somebody down on the concourse, and a bunch of people came up and he was talking to them. And then there was a video that Andy and Daniela filmed asking people questions about certain things. And just seeing how happy it made them, I remember coming home and I told my wife that this is what I want to be able to do to people. I want to be able to make them happier and make their day better than it was before I met them and before I saw them. And just be able to brighten up people's days because you never know what's going on. And just being able to bring some joy to people, the joy of the game over the air, and then just the joy of a smile in real life, and be able to just continue to brighten up everything around is something that I think is really, really important and we can use some more of. And so that's something that I really am excited to do down here in Lakeland is just get to meet people. I met a couple of the game day staff people when I was down here at spring training. They were great. I've really enjoyed meeting everybody down here on our staff and the players and the managers and the coaches and everything. It's just been really, really nice to get to know everybody. And I'm excited to continue doing that over the next few weeks and into the next few months.
Yeah, I mean that was going to be my next question. Is basically, now you're the play-by-play voice of the Lakeland Flying Tigers. When did you find out got the job? When did you get down there? What have you been doing?
Yeah, so in terms of finding out, the last couple of months have been a blur because I also do Michigan State basketball pregame and halftime host. So I've been all over the country with MSU the last couple of months. So if I remember right, it was early February that I found out that that I had gotten the position. I was with the organization last year as the communications and broadcasting assistant in Detroit. And so I already had a lot of relationships within the organization. And so I had a lot of conversations with people, and I'm good friends with Joe Puccio. And so talking with him as he was finding his new spot in the Yankees organization. And so it was just kind of looking at that. The minor league baseball broadcast cycle has a lot of domino effects. It's a weird job cycle, and it happens in like phases because of those domino effects. And so you see some jobs come out in November, and then you'll see some more jobs come out in December, and then you'll see other jobs in January and February, and they kind of just go in phases. The Lakeland job was in the latter part of the last phase of it, and so this was one of the later jobs out there, and so because of that, the process moved kind of quickly. But it was a couple of months ago at this point that I think I found out, and then it was kind of then began the balancing act of trying to get everything ready because I had 6-ish weeks before I was heading down to Lakeland and also everything going on with Michigan State basketball. And so I just got into Lakeland on Tuesday. because I was in Atlanta with Michigan State for the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight. And then I did the lovely fly back to Michigan just to drive back through Atlanta the next day to get down to Florida. But my dad did the drive with me, which was nice. I was able to not have to do it all myself because it's a 20-hour drive from
Yeah.
Lansing, Michigan to Lakeland, Florida. But yeah, I got down here a couple of days ago, was in the office yesterday, got to meet everybody that I hadn't met at spring training because I flew down here between the end of the regular season for Michigan State and the Big Ten tournament. And so I was here for a couple of days, a couple of weeks ago. But I got to meet the rest of the people yesterday and kind of get things started. And I know the team is in Tampa tomorrow to open up the year, and then I've got the home opener on Tuesday against St. Lucie.
Yeah, that's gonna be a very as far as like the Mets go, that's a pretty stacked team that you'll be
Yeah.
the first home schedule there.
Mhm.
So yeah, for everybody that wants to check it out, I would highly suggest getting the MILB package. You can listen to the games on air, or excuse me, you can watch the games, the home games. They're still gonna be broadcasted, correct, on TV?
Yep.
Okay, great. And there's certain road games I know that I know road games are a little different, but still, if you want to follow the Flying Tigers, no matter what. But then after that, you have Bradenton right after that, and then to end the month. So, Zach, where can everybody find you on the social media, whether it's X or what have you?
So I'm most active on X or Twitter or whatever. And it's just at Zach Surdenik. So my name there, and I will be having all sorts of content going out throughout the year. I'm really excited to build a lot of stuff. And then make sure to follow our Flying Tigers accounts as well at LKD Flying Tigers. Because we're going to have a bunch of stuff going out there. Got a lot of ideas of some content, some storytelling with some players. We're going to do some things a little differently with like our pregame show and some other things like that. We're going to be involving a lot of the players more than in the past, and I think part of that just comes from growing the broadcast. And Joe and the crew down here last year set a really good standard starting the year, and the growth from the beginning of the year to the playoffs was monumental on the broadcasts. And going back and watching those, and you can see how everything grew and got better and better. And now we just want to jump from that point and just continue to grow and continue to expand upon everything and involve these players and showcase them and show their stories, because for a lot of these guys, this is the start of professional baseball. And so if you can continue, or if we can continue to showcase these players and their stories and everything that's gotten them there and why they are here and what their hopes and dreams are for this beyond just obviously make it to the big leagues. Everybody wants to make it to the big leagues, but why and what drives you and all of those things. The more we can tell those stories, the better. And that all goes back to relationships, like I said before, with everybody. And so I'm really excited to continue to build those.
Yeah, but the first season for Rene Rivera, who is the
Mhm.
first year manager for the Flying Tigers, as Andrew Graham is now in Erie. Zach, thanks so much for your time and really appreciate it. And we look forward to retweeting and getting more and sharing the word about the Flying Tigers. It's the rosters will probably drop within the next day or two, and look out for an announcement. Go to the Flying Tigers on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, for an announcement on the roster. And we thank you again for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's really nice to